Hello and welcome to the Power Chat Form episode 1. So this is a new show that I've created, and the idea is to bring in a couple of my favorite people from the community to just have a chat. On this week's or this month's, whichever way we're going to do this, month's show, we have Joe Griffin. Joe is a staple in the Dynamics community. He's talked at probably nearly every UG in the UK and abroad as well. He's been doing the miles. So we have Joe Griffin with us. Hello. Also with us, we have Malin Donoso Martnes. Apologies for the butchering of that pronunciation. You all know Malin as the talent MVP, but she's much more than that to me. I met her last year and I've become good friends with her. She is a wealth of information about the Power Platform as well as HR that killed talent. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Such a fantastic introduction. I need you permanently on my side all the time.
Yeah. I'll be your permanent hype man going around introducing you into places.
Yeah, so let's just do that. Yep. Yeah, that'll work.
Do a little fanfare sort of thing.
This is Joe.
So I thought I would hand it over to both of you to give a bit more of an introduction. So Malin, ladies first, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I am currently the head of Dynamics 365 at a company in Norway called Knowit. So we have just started doing CRM, and I started in January. So I am quite fresh in the role. Yeah, thank you. And we are building up a Dynamics department there, or a CRM department, but we already have some Salesforce consultants.
Ooh, it's a dirty word in calls like this.
Yeah. So so far I'm working on getting more Dynamics consultants and taking over the whole thing.
Go in, then take over.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm located in Norway right now, so which is great.
Yeah, I've never been to Norway. Is it nice? Is it scenic?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I can attest to that.
Joe was here for the Dynamics Saturday in August.
Yeah. It's on that list of places to go. So it's like Finland, Sweden, Norway, and just kind of like travel around to Russia at some point. But I need to get my travel boots on and start going. So
yeah, you should submit for the Nordic Summit.
I have done. Yeah. I just need to send some bribes to Miss Sarah Lagerqvist to try and get in on that. Am I thinking of the wrong one? Is that the Swedish Summit? Nordic Summit?
Nordic Summit. Sarah, Jonas, Gustav, Katrine, myself, Thomas, Marius, Guro, Ida, Antti, and Jukka, and Magnus from Denmark.
So I have a lot of bribes that I need to send out.
You
okay. Got it.
So we'll see who bribes the most people. They get it.
Okay. Well, do you know, I've always liked you, Malin. You've been always one of my favorite people.
Well, you've started out good, so far you're on my good side.
Yeah, we'll see how I get on. And Joe, how about you? How did you? What are you up to? Who are you? Where are you from? Tell us everything.
So as Matt said, my name's Joe. I am co-founder and sort of lead consultant, quite a few hats, but so I sort of basically run a small Microsoft Gold partner based in the northwest of the UK. So we do quite a lot across the business application space. So quite a bit of Power BI, Common Data Service, Dynamics, things like that. A lot of Azure, dabble in .NET stuff as well. Still like doing a bit of SQL occasionally when I'm a good boy. So we just basically just do consultancy and managed services across the board of that. So in terms of what I do on a day-to-day basis, it can sort of vary from, just sort of doing consultancy, building Power Apps portals, to updating websites, to maybe writing a bit of SQL code. So quite varied, but it's interesting, really interesting.
Yeah, I've always found that about you. You're one of the most varied people that I know in terms of your breadth of knowledge and skills. I've like personally, referenced your blogs on several occasions. First time on like Power BI, but then on licensing, and then on Dynamics, and then on SQL, and all sorts. You have your finger in so many pies.
I just can't focus. I'm like a little child, just sort of running about, just sort of going, oh yeah, sure, I love you, best thing, best thing, oh, best thing, man, buddy, oh look, power apps over there, yeah, fantastic, yeah. So I'm just
new shiny things.
New shiny things, yeah, shiny things.
Oh.
But I just can't focus, so I'm always flipping the brass and stuff like that. So it has its pros and cons, shall we say?
Yeah, you're like a magpie. Just a new shiny thing comes along. Like, Joe, if you can hopefully just focus your attention a little bit for this troll, I'd appreciate.
Really
appreciate you not just wandering off.
What's this over here? What's this?
If I could, Joe, if you were only to focus on one thing, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question.
One thing.
Hey, whose show is this?
Sorry.
I'm only kidding. This is perfect.
See, I think I would be happy focusing on sort of Dynamics or common data service, model-driven app sort of development stuff, because the good thing about that is you do get to stick your finger into quite a lot of different pies. You can be writing SQL Server reports one day, doing a bit of C# the next, doing some cool things with TypeScript and JavaScript the next day. So Dynamics is great for people, basically for people who just can't
focus.
Can't focus and who are not experts at anything. Just go do Dynamics. Yeah, you'll be fine.
I do find that myself, is that previously you could be a Dynamics consultant and you'd focus on one thing, which was Dynamics CRM as it was, and these days, like, okay, I'm a Dynamics consultant, but I need to build a Canvas app for something, and then I need to build a Power BI dashboard for something else, and I need to build a Power Automate flow for something else. They themselves, they seem like they're magpies, and we just need to kind of be a master of everything now in the platform, and that's one of the hardest things I think for anyone coming into this to figure out and do. So,
and that's not speaking about the different applications.
Yes, absolutely.
You start focusing on sales, customer service, marketing, HR, ERP. What are you doing?
Yeah. And if you look at like the release notes for things, so right now we're recording this just before Wave 1 for 2020 is supposed to be coming out. And if you look at the release notes of those, they say, oh, you've got this feature and you've got this feature. And what they don't tell you is the feature for one is not available in the feature for the other. So we're kind of used to understanding like Dynamics as a whole, but now things are very modular. So the same things that you get in sales is not the same things you get in customer service, is not the same things you get in field service. So it's like there's a little bit of inconsistency across the board. So we have to all be smart about those things. So
the thing about
and
the platform,
find good blogs to read.
Yeah.
Yes. How long have you been blogging for, Joe? It feels like years.
I think I originally started back in 2015.
Yeah.
So 2015, back into that. So because I did some blogging previously, I did like a really crappy blog about popular culture items or something like that. It's on there on the internet if you want to find it. I give you no guarantees towards its quality or
Is
relevance.
it fan fiction?
No, it was more like, so I took a thing like there's like this jigsaw puzzle that I had as a kid.
Yeah.
It was like one in a series of basically like colourful, cartoony maps of places. Like, so there's one of the UK, I think there's one of Scandinavia, Europe, all that sort of stuff. So I just did a blog post on that. It was just a cool thing from the past.
Yeah.
So originally I did that when I was at uni, and then I just sort of always had a bit of an itch to do a bit of writing. So I sort of said, okay, right, I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to do a blog post a week minimum. And then since then it's just been,
So that was 2015. So you've been doing a blog post a week every week for this is your 5th year.
It will be. It might be 16 actually, because I get lost when I first got into Dynamics. It was something like, when was it? The first version I played with was, or I trained on, was Dynamics 2015.
Yeah.
Just before the release R2, which sort of changed the whole sitemap.
Yeah.
If you sort of vaguely remember back in the days.
Yeah.
That's why I get
scroll all the way across.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then you go even further back, Matt, because you started out in 2011, didn't you?
Version 4.
Version 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I just about escaped that version 3. Version 4 quickly followed by 2011. I think it was even 2011 online as well. So it was one of the first CRM online instances.
So you were literally bleeding cutting edge in
Yeah.
2011 terms, at least.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah, I started as a user in 2011.
oh wow.
Yeah, so that was my first CRM project. That was as a user, super user, or I was supposed to just be a user, and then I came back from holidays and joined the first meeting, and they had done. It wasn't an optimal project, to say that.
Yes.
So I came in and say, "Oh, we don't do it like that," and "Oh, we don't." It was they listened to some people in management and hadn't included the actual users,
Which we all know is a big problem in any project.
Yes. So that is why I never ever do projects where just management is involved. I won't do it because I know how horribly wrong it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started on-prem 2011 as a user.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then no stopping you from there. So take me through the timeline. So 2011 on-prem, super user. Did you work your way up in that organization, or did you take the jump and just go, do you know what? I reckon I can do this.
No, it was actually our consultant that said to us from the company implementing it. They came up and said to me, "Have you ever considered being a CRM consultant?"
Wow.
Yeah, and I said, "No, I haven't, because I was supposed to do marketing." And this isn't it. And he said, "Well, you should think about it." And I did, and I think the week after, 2 headhunters called me for 2 different CRM consultant jobs. And I was like, well, it's faith, so I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you are head of a Dynamics CE practice.
Yes. So that's about 6 years ago since I started.
Wow. That's very impressive.
This is how far you can get with this amazing platform.
Yes, exactly. And when you just obsess a tiny bit.
Yeah, obsession is good. I like obsession. It's,
yeah. I talked to someone yesterday about this and saying we probably all are a bit crazy in this community because we over obsess about everything and we don't do things halfway. We go all out every time. Yeah. But that's fun.
Yeah, I think when you look at some of us in the community, you can definitely tell that we're all a little bit crazy.
Yep.
I don't think you can do this job and be completely sane. Yep. So, I mean, I know for me, like I tend to figure out solutions to problems right as I'm about to go to sleep. And then I'm like, and they're like, I have to write this down before I forget how to do this thing in the morning. That was the reason for starting my blog, is to try and remember things that I did again. So
yeah.
But you have quite a good blogging accolade, don't you, Malin? You did, what was it, 1 blog post every day or every work day for 6 months?
Every work day.
Every work day.
6 months.
That's, yeah, I can't, I just about manage 2 a month at that. So I can't imagine how focused you had to be to do 1 a day every work day.
I can't either. And it is, every time I think about it, I cannot understand how I did that. Because that was full-time working and I had a 2-year-old kid at home. So from the time I got home from work until he was in bed, I didn't do any work or any blogging, anything. He was my time.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of late evenings and a lot of working and a lot of weekends doing blog posts. But people always ask me, well, how did you think of the content? Not that much. That was really easy. That was just the certification and going through every part of the certification. So that just came along. And then you have but why did you do it? Fredrik Sætre, my contact person on talent in Microsoft Norway, He's a former AX MVP. He said that for him, he started his journey just by blogging 1 day every month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, I challenge you to do that because it's hard work. And I said, okay, I can do that. Stupid.
Just completely knocked it out the park instead.
Yeah, and then when I was done with a month, I was like, well, this isn't too hard. I could just keep going, and I can just see how far I've come.
Yeah.
And then when it started to, because this was from October to, well, just about March, April, I think. And I was like, okay, so around Christmas, well, I can't stop now. That would be too stupid.
Yeah.
It's not that far. I could just keep going.
Yeah.
And there were times when I was considering if I was sick or a kid was sick or something, like, okay, I could probably skip today. And then the OCD kicks in and no, you cannot. And I just, damn it. So I was like 11:45, just typing with one eye open and publish, and got it out there. So,
well, it was an impressive feat when I heard what you'd done. So you did kind of lay the gauntlet down for other people out there. So it's kind of, I started my video series based on that idea of doing one video every day for only 30 days. And I thought, you know what, that won't be too bad. I'll do one video, I'll do them in bulk. So I'll sit down and I won't record a video a day. I'll record like 20 videos in a day, and well, I didn't do 20 videos, but and then by the time I recorded all the videos that I wanted to record, I was actually at like 35 or 40. So I was like, well, I've got these extra videos. They're just sat there. Let's just keep going and keep going. So I think from in 2 days' time, we'll be going into my 6th month of producing daily videos. So
that's
thank
even
you.
more impressive. So videos are harder work than just blog posts.
Well, have you seen this one? Like, this is just three people chatting. This will be an easy one to do. So
it's cheating. It's cheating. You can't do it.
A little bit cheating. So
yeah.
So
that's impressive.
Yeah. So we've heard Malin's origin story. Joe, I've spoken to you in the past about how you got into this, and I have this little theory that you've heard of the 6 degrees of separation, that everyone in the planet is separated by only 6 people, 6 social circles. There's a film about it with Will Smith, Donald Sutherland, I think, as well.
Okay.
And you were trained by, were you trained by Neil Parkhurst?
No, I was trained by the very legendary, and he is legendary, Julian Sharp.
Julian Sharp. So this is what I mean, is that everyone I speak to in the dynamics world, at least in the UK, they were trained by either Julian or they were trained by Neil. And Julian trained Neil. So I think that if you connect any 6 people inside this community, you'll eventually get back to Julian at some stage, because Julian seems to be the oracle of all knowledge in where it starts from.
He's the super sensei. He really is. He just what he knows across the breadth of the platform and what he's done in terms of getting people to where they are today is just astounding, really. So Julian, really, respect, deep respect.
So you were trained by Julian, but how did you get onto that? How did you figure out this was something you wanted to do?
So I've always been sort of interested in IT, but in terms of my career and qualifications, it took me down a completely different direction into history. So I've got a bachelor's and a master's degree in history, of all things. Anyway, it gets to work and finding a job and stuff like that, taking a few sort of little odd jobs and stuff like that. And for me, what I always find is IT, it always seems to be something that you just fall into. And it generally is because you are that one person that one day who, when somebody says, oh, I've got an issue with the printer, you're the one who just goes over, turns it off, turns it back on. Oh, it's working. Right, you're the IT guy now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So started off with that. I'd always been interested in computers, stuff like that. I went off and did quite a bit more at the time with SQL. So lots of SQL, a bit of C#, bit of PowerShell as well. And then the business I was working for at the time, sort of end user, we decided, okay, we're going to implement Dynamics CRM. So I went off with the training course. And for me, it really stuck because with the SQL background, it all made sense really quickly. I understood it.
Yeah.
it actually, when it came to the exams and things like that, I was actually passing, and it was one of the first courses where I'd actually passed a Microsoft exam for the first time. So that obviously makes your confidence starts ballooning up a bit. So I'm thinking, oh yeah, I can do this type thing. So obviously we invented Dynamics CRM internally in a place like that. I then went off and did various jobs, went to work for another gold partner, went back to an end user, and now fortunately in a position now where I can actually, okay, well, I know how great Dynamics 365 is, I know how great the Power Platform is. Let's try and help other organizations who are struggling with it or want to get the best out of it, get them to a capable point with it, and really start to leverage the benefits they can deliver. So yeah, interesting journey. But like I say, like you've said earlier, it's very much sort of touching around, playing with lots of different things, which for me I find really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing I would say about you is that you just seem to have such a breadth of knowledge about everything, not even just Microsoft but other products as well. One of my colleagues is I think his title is like senior BI consultant, and he splits his time between Power BI and what's called Click. Or Click Sense or Click something or other. I said to him that you were going to be presenting at RUG. So me and Joe run the Dynamics 365 UG out of Manchester.
Matt, when's our next meeting for that, by the way?
The next meeting for that is on the 23rd of April.
Wow, that's really soon.
It is really soon.
Do we have an amazing lineup of speakers yet?
We do have an amazing line of speakers. We have the wonderful and amazing Emma Darcy. She is going to be talking on all things UCI and custom controls. She's been doing an excellent blog series on that. And we also have, again, I'm going to butcher this name, Artur Zelinsky.
Artur Zelinsky.
Yeah,
sorry, Artur.
We'll go with that. Sorry, Artur. We apologise. He's going to be talking on making your dynamics more conversational. So working with chatbots and the bot framework that Microsoft have to bring everything to life. And we may have a sneaky session at the end, which is a panel session, which is the Ask the Audience, where you can ask us any question, and from our lineup, we will try and do our best to answer it and let hilarity ensue.
But how can I attend such a wonderful event from the comfort of my own home, though?
Well, it's good that you asked. It will be a free online virtual event. So I think the current plan is to use Teams events. All the details TBC, but registration and links should go out shortly if they haven't already by the time this video airs.
Heard it here first.
Yes. So
anyway, sorry, that was a useful segue. But anyway,
it was. Can you come on all these podcasts and just prompt me for stuff like that?
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna be a hype man bringing you into rooms. Can you just prompt me for certain things that I need?
You keep introducing me so well, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so a colleague of mine is a BI consultant, and I said to him, "Oh, if you're interested, I know my colleague on the UG committee is going to give a talk on Power BI and how you can use it in Dynamics, and it's a lot of the work that we're going through." And he said, "Oh, who is it?" And I said, "Oh, it's Joe Griffin." He's like, "The CRM chap," and I was like, "Yeah," and I thought, isn't that strange that someone that does Power BI and Click mainly knows who Joe is? And I was like, you should come down because he's from Newcastle. I said, you should come down for the night. The company will pay you fare. You can come down, have the meeting and meet Joe. And he's like, oh no, you can't meet your heroes. That's one thing you can't do. So. So far, I thought it was nice as well.
That's really nice. That's really nice. But I mean, but I think going back to your earlier point in terms of obviously, mentioned already, I do lots of different stuff. So not necessarily like a core subject matter expert in, let's say, Power BI, let's say, for example. But I think when you look at, so I was at an Agile course last year, I think it was, and I don't know if anybody who's not aware of it, what they sort of teach in Agile when it comes to the types of teams that you should have in place. It talks about this concept of pillars. So within your team, you should ideally have individuals who are multi-pillared in terms of their skill set, because there's going to be more benefits as part of the project, as part of the business, when you've got those people in the place. So it's all well and good having, let's say, one person who's got a massive pillar in .NET development, but if their other pillars are low or non-existent, there's not going to be any benefit to them. So therefore, I think it's a good lesson, I guess, more generally for IT, but certainly for working with cloud solutions from Microsoft, except early on that you're only ever going to be at that level or this sort of level pillar-wise across the board. Don't focus on being a complete expert in one area. You'll get yourself burned because things are changing so rapidly. sorry, Marlin. Well, no, this is an interesting point actually, because perhaps you could shed some light on that, because there have been some changes in HR, haven't there? So I just wonder whether, how has that been as a transition then, in terms of obviously acclimatizing yourself to the new way of doing things?
Because I it's a bit different for me, because I started out in CRM and I have the marketing background. So since I started as a consultant in 2014, I worked with sales and customer service and click dimensions. So I've always done all of that, and HR just came by chance on me into, well, quite exactly 2 years ago, and there weren't any content out there. So I just thought, well, then I could just create it and have it more like my mind map, and what do I wonder about? What would I like to read about in the blog? So I still keep up to date on the other Dynamics products. So I think I have a quite an efficient level, and of course on Power Apps and Power Virtual Agent and Flow and everything, I try to just touch in a bit on everything. So I think my pillars are
You've got good pillars, yeah.
And I just have a massive spike in one of them.
Yeah, and that's like, kind of, I'm gonna add to that as well, is that I always find that even, you're right, you should have like a good breadth of knowledge, because if you focus on one area solely, you may lose sight of other things. Yeah. But when you find something like HR or talent, or even field service was a new thing that came out, and PSA was a new thing that came out. These are areas that, especially for people like us that come from a CRM background, was never there before. So finding out what that does and using it and stuff, it's always really useful. So
I guess the lesson that I would give to people is don't obsess necessarily. Don't be worried if you feel as if you're not like top tier level expert in one particular area. It's literally impossible, particularly with the Power Platform. Just accept that you're going to have a really good time and a good overview of lots of different cool stuff. Dive into what you need to as and when the problem faces you, sort of hitting you in the face, and you'll enjoy things more. You'll stress less because you're not having to worry about learning new stuff because you've got a new project coming up, and ultimately from a career standpoint, your skill set's going to be much well-rounded, because you're proving to your clients and to the business and prospective employees just how versatile you are as a person. So
yeah, and don't stop in the Dynamics or Power Platform sphere, because I do a lot in Teams, and I know Office 365 and like all the other connected parts. I've taken courses on PowerPoint and like just explore everything, just because it's great fun, and you will always find a use for it.
Yeah. I mean, I love learning and teaching. It's one of my, I think if I wasn't a consultant, I'd probably try and be a teacher. Yeah.
No.
Although
No.
I'm not a like, my sister's a teacher, and I have so much respect for teachers. I don't think I could probably do it with the kids, but like adults, maybe, training people, I think that's more my sort of thing.
Adults have more awkward questions usually, don't they? Very awkward questions sometimes.
Adults are, excuse my language, often more dicks.
Yeah, I didn't want to go that far, but now that it's out there, I agree.
Some people are worse than kids.
Yeah.
But
so I mean, just trying to go back to your point, Joe. All three of us are speakers in the community. All three of us run user groups and events for people to attend. I think what you're saying, Joe, is actually really valid. That a lot of people are worried that they don't know enough about something, and therefore don't feel like they can speak on something.
Yep.
So I remember this is the first episode, and we should probably talk about our firsts. So my first time speaking, that is, to get your mind out of the gutter. I'm looking at you, Malin. So
how dare you, Matt?
No idea what you're talking about.
No idea.
Innocent here.
So my first time submitting a session for an event, I submitted, I think it was 5 sessions, thinking maybe one of them will get chosen, and 3 of them got chosen. And I thought, damn it, now I have to make 3 presentations and not just one. And I remember that first, that after I gave that first presentation, which was I think it was on certifications, and I remember walking out of the presentation and thinking, oh my god, what have I just done? And I bumped into Sarah Critchley, and I remember Sarah saying to me, hey dude, you okay? Because I must have been white as a sheet, and I just looked up at her and said, fuck. And she's like, thanks. I said, no, I've just given this presentation and I'm really weird. And she's like, just come with me. And she like ushered me into a room where we went and sat and watched another presentation. And I just gave me like half an hour to kind of come down. Do you guys have like similar experiences when you gave your first presentation at a UG, or was it a little less intensive than my first time?
I seem to have a habit of my demos crashing in spectacular fashion, and then I end up doing. Then they end up sort of doing, and then I end up doing stupid things like somehow managing to throw my clicker in the air, it's smashing on the floor. Surprisingly, though, whilst that happened, I did manage to continue talking until my brain caught up with me after I picked it up, and my brain was sort of going like, Joe, do you realise you've just been talking whilst all that's gone on? What the hell is wrong with you? So yeah, I've had things like that. I think what I find is most people in the room want you to succeed.
Yeah.
So just relax.
Yeah.
And good time.
Because I had my first presentation in Norway, was at the UG here, and it was petrifying, but that was in Norwegian, so I had some kind of like, okay,
comfort level.
Well, not really, because it was on HR, and
Right.
and it was, I think, in December in 2018, so I really didn't have much experience in it. And my next presentation was in the user group summit in Amsterdam. That was scary. Yes, that was quite scary. But it went okay. The only thing was the room was so freezing cold. So I was like, I hadn't any finger feeling, and it was just horrible. But I was so warm because I was so nervous. So my fingers were freezing, and I was just so warm and just going through. And when it was done, it was luckily first thing in the morning. So I always love to have a presentation first thing, because then I'm done with it and I can enjoy the rest of the day, which is best.
I think that's the thing, like when your presentation is last, is when you start to like, you're thinking all day about it and you're not really concentrating on anything else. So, but I totally get the whole idea of your hands just freezing cold while you're sweating. Which doesn't make sense. It's just your body just not catching up with anything. So
no, and you know, I knew some of the people in the room, and they were like managers of 4Vision and people I've recently met, and some of my co-workers, and it was just scary. So
I on my second presentation that I did at that event, I had Matt Barber walk into the back of the room. And if you want to talk about pressure to then deliver something, it's when a senior Microsoft official walks into the room to make sure that you're not just going to be heckled for like, oh well, we're adding this in, or that's coming in, all that sort of stuff. So, but no, that's all good.
But it's so fun, so you just keep on doing it. Yeah.
And the thing you find, at least I find, is that there's so many people interested in what it is you're saying, that they just want. That's the reason they're there, is that they're interested in you and what you are saying and everything coming out. So I think I've been lucky that I've not had too bad an experience with hecklers. I think some people in the community have been heckled by people that just want to be there and be awkward. But I think for the people that we know in the community and the people that we sort of like interact with, everyone is super supportive of whatever it is you want to do. So even create a podcast when you're under 35 and in isolation.
Sorry for that.
It's okay.
I saw a tweet yesterday, was it, about someone saying, even in this confined times, please don't be under 35 thinking about creating a podcast. And I had to send it to Matt.
Yes, that didn't rock my confidence about doing this whole thing at all. So
I had already said yes to it.
Yes.
So
Right, I'm gonna have to think twice about mine then, I think.
yeah.
Well,
CRM
it's
chat
always
hour.
great to see. It's always good fun to just talk to you guys and to meet friendly faces. And
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, this is being recorded. It might not be. Who knows? You know, it might all fail, but you know, at least we had fun doing this. So
Absolutely.
that's
we
that's the fun thing. So isolation aside and everything else that's going on aside, what are you guys doing sort of day to day at the moment? You know, we've got Wave 1 2020 coming out in the next couple of weeks. Do you guys have any interesting projects going on, or what's your day to day looking like at the moment? So how about you first, Joe?
So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of work with an end user, basically just helping them with the system. But the main crux of the project is at the moment to get an local access database application, and pull that across into the common data service using a Canvas app instead.
Did you say access?
Access, yes. It is the most strangest access app I've ever seen. It really is.
When you started saying that, I thought you meant just like as in get access to something. You mean an access database, as in that product that people used to build?
You would be surprised. Access is still super common, and really what I see as Canvas apps being a really good replacement option for them. So part of why we're doing this is to sort of prove that point. But essentially, the interesting thing about doing this is that you're having to learn about how Canvas apps work compared to model-driven apps, and there's quite a lot of differences. So it's figuring out. So you go into it. So option sets are a good one. So for example, you go in and assume that okay, well, in order to update an option set, I'm going to need to specify the integer value in the Canvas app. No, wrong. You have to instead access the label. It's got this whole object in Power Apps that you have to then like write out the option set name plus the value. You then got all the different problems when it comes to doing your sort of filters, collections, getting data into collections so you can actually do something with it instead of querying it directly. All sorts of little things like that, which have been interesting to find to sort of battle through.
I know someone that has done a lot of great videos in the last 6 months.
Yeah, who'd that be? I wonder.
But I think someone's just made a blog post about how to use option sets in Canvas apps, haven't they, Mr. Griffin?
Oh yeah, I wonder who that idiot is. Yeah. But yeah, as part of it as well, doing a little bit with Power Automate flows as well. So what we're trying to do across the whole of the project at the moment is using background workflows, because they're going to be they're potentially going to be going in the future based on what we think is happening. So doing Power Automate flows, send out emails to sort of do common tasks like that. But yeah, the Canvas app stuff is really is interesting, but coming into it from a model-driven app background, I think is probably more of a hindrance than a help, because you've got all that baggage behind you, and you just end up just flapping about for ages trying to figure out stuff.
Yeah. So the one thing I say about the difference between Canvas apps and model-driven apps is that when you have a model-driven app, you start with basically all the tools that you need, but you don't start with any of the data model. So the fact that in a Canvas app, you have to create a button that creates a new record, then you have to create the screen for that new record, then you need to create a save button, and on that save button, that does a certain thing for that new record. Whereas a model-driven app, you just like, well, click, okay, it's done. So it is that. I think you're right, coming from that model-driven background. I think we struggle a little bit to understand those complexities, but I think after a while, it just becomes second nature to you. So
But it does help in some other areas. So, one of the requirements is, okay, we need the ability to be able to export data views using like Excel or things like that as well. So as I'm sure everyone does when they're doing this, they go onto their favorite search engine, find solutions. You've got people doing
Bing.
crazy Bing,
Bing.
absolutely.
Bing users,
yeah. So you go into Bing, and obviously the solutions on there are actually sort of things like, okay, well, you could maybe send it out to a flow to an email and then print off the email and stuff like that. Doesn't sound great, but because we're familiar with model-driven apps, it's actually what you can do within a Canvas app. Open up a specific view in a model-driven app within the Canvas app itself, and then that way, once the user's in the view itself, you can then have a PDF or an Excel report that they can download again. So it's things. So it has its pros and cons. Sometimes you're having to figure things out, and it's banging your head against the wall for ages. But in other areas, you can actually sort of think, well, hang on, I can actually, have a better solution here. One that's actually going to leverage what model-driven apps are really great at doing. So having the structured views and being able to export data and stuff like that, and not necessarily having to implement solutions that just seem really, what I mean, it's sort of like convoluted, and just not users and colleagues in the business are going to take one look at it and sort of go, well, hang on, why am I having to do this?
Yeah,
and you need to avoid that all the time. So
there are some blog posts out there that just shows you the solution that you can do. It's not a good solution, but it does work. And I made it work, so I'll blog about it.
Yeah. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
There is always that. So.
Oh yes.
But Malin, you being head of D365C practice, does that mean you get much time to build things anymore, or are you more like having to manage your team and build that up?
Oh no, because so far I was the first employee on Dynamics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's basically doing everything for me now. Yeah, so we've got a new hire that is coming in June, and we're hoping to hire a few more, but the entire position we're in now with the Corona, it's just destroying everything, every plan.
Yeah.
So it is sales. Right now this week I'm doing a half-day training with a company in UK, actually.
Okay.
On HR, a consultant company, just to get their consultants up to speed on HR. Nice. And answering a public tender.
Oh, tenders. I love them. Not.
Yeah. And a public one. It's like government. Yeah. It takes up all my day. So it's a lot of sales, and I have some other companies, and there's a million things to do.
Yes, and only one person to do them.
And not enough time. Because the one thing is being quarantined while you're alone or with just a spouse or a dog or a cat or anything, then you have a lot of time and you can actually sit down and do things.
Yeah.
When you have a crazy 3.5-year-old running back and forth, you don't get that much done.
No, I'll stick to cats.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of free time because I have 2 cats and no children. But I think if I want to keep my time at the moment, I'll do that. So.
But it's quite good. We found having cat invasions on our daily stand-up calls actually quite fun. Yeah, so one of my colleagues has their cat Jasper that pops up. I've got either one of my 2 cats turn up sometimes. It helps. It sort of breaks it because these meetings always feel quite formal anyway. So anything just to sort of distract you away from it, just have a bit of a laugh is always quite good. So
Yeah. My team or the company that with the Salesforce people and everyone, we have daily meetings at 9 o'clock in the morning. So we always start out our day because we have people that are living alone, that are single, that doesn't see any other people during the day.
Yeah.
So they would really like see other people.
Yeah. We
have a meeting and it's great. And some of us have kids and they tend to join the meeting at some times, and there's occasionally a dog and a cat, and everyone's in coffee and like they almost their pajamas on. So it's a great fun. It's good.
I think you need to buy those pajamas that look like a suit or a dress, and then you can just pretend like you're at work and naturally you're just still in pajamas. So.
Yes, I actually had my one piece on. It's kind of a Christmassy theme with Christmas. Yeah, it's quite horrible, but it's very good too. It's very good when you wake up too early and you have to go to the meeting and the kid is yapping and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just good fun.
So my one piece of advice at the moment is try and make your daily calls as early as possible, because what you may end up finding is that you don't actually bother getting dressed or prepared for yourself until stupid o'clock in the day. So
yeah,
move your daily calls to ideally 9 on the dot, and you will. Those problems will evaporate instantly, I assure you.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's.
I mean, ours are 9:05 every day, and like even before everything else that's going on in the world, I was a remote worker for about 4 years now, and most of my team are remote workers as well. So this is kind of, it's not normal, but it's not like the worst thing in the world. But one thing I did realize is that because I'm so used to being at home anyway, other people may not be. So I kind of like came up with the idea of like having an open water cooler at the end of every day. So just a chat you can drop in and out of for the last 40 minutes of the day, chat about your day, chat about the kids, the dog, the cat, the shopping, all that sort of stuff. And there's a lot of other things like that in the community. Is it Dave Burrell's got the lunchtime thing?
Yeah.
So
every day at I think it's 12 o'clock UK time, so 1 o'clock in Norway. It's an open Teams meeting, and it's just for everyone to join. And there's always people there, so it's good fun. And you talk about everything and nothing, and the dogs, and yeah.
And Chris Huntingford started up the virtual events hub.
Yep.
And I think last Thursday they had an open pub night where just a bunch of people joined and got drunk on a Teams call together, which sounds hilarious, and they should have recorded it. So maybe not.
It depends on who you are, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for everyone. So, right, before we wrap up, Malin, do you have any events that you want to advertise? We've already spoken about Nordic Summit, but if you want to advertise it again, go for it. Or anything else you're doing at the moment?
Summit.info is the webpage, and the call for speakers are open. And we just had to change dates. So it is now on the 7th of November in Stockholm, Sweden. So we are trying to, well, we're not trying to beat Scottish Summit, because that's just crazy. But we wanted to create, all the UGs of the Nordic countries have gone together to create one joint summit to see if we can make it even bigger and better and join all our efforts. So I think that would be great. And possibly corona-free by November.
One would hope, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna hope to get there if I'm lucky enough to be selected as a speaker. I just may need to speak to you and Jonas and Sarah and 90 other people and butter you all up quite nicely to get in there. Joe, have you submitted?
I believe I have, yeah. So fingers crossed. Okay. I've not got any bribes purchased yet. I'm winning. I don't know what the best thing is: chocolate or just a cold hard cash, maybe.
It depends on the person.
Depends on the person, yeah. So I need to do my research a bit more.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got stickers. Everyone likes stickers, so
you can't eat stickers though.
That's a good point. You shouldn't eat stickers, no matter what.
Shouldn't eat stickers.
Don't eat stickers.
Good advice.
That's going to be the name of this podcast. Is episode 1? Don't eat stickers.
Yes.
No, but wouldn't it be good? You could take all the community stickers and make them into like biscuits with like icing on. Imagine that.
You know what? That's not a bad idea. I only need someone artistic enough. I mean, mine's easy. Mine's just a G. That's my sticker. But can you imagine trying to do the root, like, the XML fetch XML editor? I can't speak. The Fetch XML builder. Sorry, Jonas. Sorry, I was just talking about you yesterday. It's all good. Or doing one of those logos in as a cookie. Nah, I don't think I could do that. So
it would be fun. That would be an
Yeah.
episode of its own. You recreating
Cooking with Matt.
biscuits. Yeah. Cooking with
Yeah.
Matt. Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go. Just do that instead of as a series. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be fun.
Yeah. Hey Joe, do you have any events coming up? Maybe on the 23rd of April.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. So we got our next virtual user group. Thankfully, the good thing about Corona is that we can obviously make it a virtual event. So yeah, we've talked about that already in terms of the speakers that we've got. Above and beyond that, I don't think there's anything else happening really. I'm actually speaking at an event this weekend. I should know the details for this.
We'll edit this bit out.
Yeah, it's like so. Oh God, what's it called? Right. Hey, Matt, here's a good time for you to just do some conversation.
Yeah,
whilst I try and find out.
I'm hoping that the UG summit in Barcelona in the end of June will still happen.
Me too. I think my company has rebooked the flights, but I don't think we've rebooked the hotel, and we may not do until close to the time. I hope it'll still be on. But you just participated in the, so you're the talent MVP. You've just participated in the virtual MVP summit. What was that like to kind of try and have a whole UG virtual? Was it as you expected?
Well, no, because this was my first MVP summit, so I was really looking forward to it. I had some Teams issues.
I think we all had Teams issues.
Yes. But it was good fun. I learned a lot, and it's always great chatting to the other MVPs. And we had this forum where we could chat, and it was great fun.
Yeah.
It really was. But of course, it would have been a lot more fun to actually go to US. And
It's like I remember the first time I went to Microsoft in Reading, because they have a HQ in Reading, and I thought, oh, I finally made it. I've made it to Microsoft, and you were actually going to the mothership in Seattle. So I can imagine. I think you'll get there one day. Maybe next
I hope
year.
so.
So
Because you still tomorrow is a deadline day for adding contributions for MVPs. So you go from tomorrow to 1st of June until you find out if you are still an MVP. That's a long time.
yeah. It's a little nerve-wracking.
It is. It's just like when the period from you're nominated until you find out if you got it or not. The horrible times.
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen you speak at several events. You were speaking at Scottish Summit recently. I met you in Brussels when we spoke at UG Focus together.
Yeah.
You're hosting Nordic Summit. You're still writing blog posts. You've changed your blog URL now. So I can't imagine there being. I think they'd be silly to not. You're my MVP.
Oh, thank you, Matt.
Such a charmer, aren't you, Matt?
Yeah.
Great over video calls, me.
Yeah.
Was that enough time, Joe?
Yes, I've actually prepared. So if you're watching,
that was so smooth.
That was so smooth.
It was cut. No.
Cool. Yeah, who cares about Malin's MVP nomination? Yeah, right, here we go. So if you're watching before the 3rd or the 5th of April, there is a conference, Empower Your Career. It's a virtual conference, so obviously with what's happening with coronavirus at the moment, people may unfortunately lost their job. Now is potentially a perfect opportunity for you to actually get skilled up in something new in a useful technology area. So this conference, which has been organized by Victor Dantes in the US, who I think is an MVP, it's basically just all about giving introduction sessions, level 100 sessions across Power Platform, Dynamics 365 and things like that. So I'm sure there'll be lots of really fantastic speakers on there, of which I do not include myself. I will be there speaking, talking about how you can use Power BI with the Common Data Service, aka Dynamics 365. So it might be recorded, so you can watch it afterwards. If not, be sure to attend, certainly if you are looking to broaden your horizons, because, you know, rather than doing what I've been doing during this crisis, which is basically sitting and playing video games all day, you should be learning. You should be learning about new stuff and empowering your career forward. So don't do what I'm doing, do this instead.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Just make sure you don't throw your clicker across the room while you're trying to explain Power BI to
So
people.
I'll smash it into the camera. Yeah, the camera.
There you go.
Go like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for joining me on this inaugural episode where we talked about our first times. We talked about all things Origins and all things Power Platform. So thank you both. And yeah, it was great chatting to you guys.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for me.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.